Let's talk about the news.
I have a piece of news that's not on this docket probably. It's about that Mario Maker shit. Is that on there? So Mario, do you see this Mario Maker 2 shit?
I did not.
Okay, so a while ago they're like, hey, guess what? Mario Maker 2 will have online play. And everyone went, yay! You'll only be able to play with randoms and not your friends. And everyone went, Nintendo.
That seems counterintuitive.
They announced a few days ago, don't worry, we're going to patch it as soon as we can, probably within a week or two of release, so that you can play with your friends.
We didn't anticipate.
I guess it's, you want to play, it's weird, but
we didn't anticipate this reaction.
I always think back to that Hard Times article about how Nintendo has not gotten any faxes complaining about their online service. Like, permanently out of touch.
How?
I don't know. I don't fucking know.
At this point, especially after they've done a couple projects with Dina.
You
right?
want the bonus? Is the Animal Crossing shit in here this week?
No.
Okay. So, Animal Crossing fans, I fucking feel for you because you are getting it the worst of anyone. No cloud saves for the new Animal Crossing to prevent manipulation of whatever the fuck. Who cares?
In addition to the whole Pokemon fiasco?
In addition. So, hey, Animal Crossing, you know the one game on that system that would be the most disastrous for you to lose your shit? You know the game that's about getting things? No cloud saves for you, because we don't want people manipulating bells or fucking whatever the fuck. I don't know what you would manipulate in Animal Crossing. But it's not a competitive game. It's not even a fucking game you win. Who gives a shit?
I don't
Who gives a shit?
understand. I don't understand because, like, why is there a permanent out of touchness where, like, I don't, like, why, like, how is there not at this point someone there going, these are bad ideas and these are not how people play games online?
Well, I can tell you the actual real answer to that question. Because Nintendo... Okay. Do you remember the article by a North American network engineer that went over to talk to Nintendo about the Wii U's infrastructure in the lead up to that?
No.
I forget where it was. It was on Eurogamer or something. And he basically described walking into meetings and going, okay, so Xbox Live does this, so we want to do blah, 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 you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he was taken aside by somebody, one of the leads of the infrastructure thing. Stop saying Xbox Live. Stop saying Steam. Stop saying PlayStation Network. No one in this room uses those services. We don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Right? And these were the heads of the infrastructure department.
Now, this was when?
5, 6,
5
7
years ago?
Yeah. So then, all of those people stayed and are still there, and so is the board, and so are all the leads. Like, think about Miyamoto. Think Miyamoto knows anything about online, whatever? No. It's like a 90-year-old man.
But the whole thing is eventually you hire someone that does so that you don't have to know.
No, you hand it off to a different company. You don't hire people to fix it. You don't hire people to teach your people. You just give it to the different company.
Like Dina?
Like Dina. And then you keep all the people that are out of touch before are out of touch, but just most of the work is being done by other people.
Like, with a product like Splatoon, right? Like, they had no choice but to kind of figure something out. And it still was the most...
What's the something they figured out? There's no cloud saves in Splatoon.
No, not cloud saves. I'm talking about online.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The online in general. And, like, it's just weird to think that, like, they have it in this functioning state, even though there's that, like, hook your phone up to the online service to do voice chat thing as well.
It's the worst.
And I'm just thinking about
Have you ever used it?
No.
It's the worst,
But
man.
I'm just thinking about how, like, Xbox Live back on the Xbox original
in 2004
had some huge growing pains, but more or less ironed them out. And then 360 came along, and you're like, oh yeah, that's online for games now on consoles.
Yep, done. And Sony tried to do it and didn't do it as well. But they tried, and they tried to do the same thing. And you're like, oh, they're just not as good.
And it took them another generation.
And then you're like, oh, that's bad.
And now it's just, oh yeah, that's it. Online for games, cool. Mute and online and connect and
yeah, done.
Service pay whatever.
And then Discord showed up to give that to the PC.
And Nintendo's still lagging on this. And it's like, there's a very clear template, and in fact, it's now a decade old.
Yeah.
For how to do this properly.
Well, hey.
If the technology was too expensive at the time, it can't possibly still be prohibitively expensive.
It's literally people who don't know and don't use this and have never used it. It is that insular tribal shit that you saw sometimes at Microsoft, but at Nintendo, it's like a fucking cult.
Because at some point, I thought it was, we don't want to pay for servers, right?
No.
That early on, that's kind of what I was like, is that what it is? You know? And then it was like, no, because they have like things like the Pokemon Bank that they rolled out, and they have like...
Which is a whole other discussion.
It is a whole other discussion. In fact, it's not a long one, you know? But
I have stuff to add to that.
But ultimately, what all of this news results in is just like, it's...
permanently out of
its
touch.
Current year,
yeah.
And we are still talking about Nintendo's online problems, and I'm just kind of like tired of it.
Even outsourcing to a different company barely helped.
I remember exactly the reaction we had when it's like, oh yeah, they brought in Dina, and we were like,
oh fucking finally, Jesus Christ.
Well, we were hoping you'd get your shit together, but hey, I guess they'll tell you how to do it.
And the answer appears to be no, they can't. Like, the cloud save thing for Animal Crossing, like, the cloud save thing for Switch is so fucking stupid. Because, let's be real, what is the likelihood, Woolie, that you will lose your PlayStation saves? Somewhat low, because the power has to go out and they get wiped, or somebody has to break into your house and steal it, right?
Yeah.
What's the likelihood that, I don't know, you lose or have your portable device stolen and the saves along with it? I don't know, relatively high. It happens all the time. Not to you or me, I mean, but like, yeah, people's Switches get fucking stolen. Or they break, or they drop them under a car, or whatever. Or they leave them at the doctor's, you know, some bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, it's the most important one to have cloud saves.
On the game where it matters the most.
On the game that it matters the most.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Animal Crossing fans, you're having fun getting your whatevers? Don't take the Switch out of the house. Ever.
So this Pokemon one is basically
We
we
talked about it a little bit last week.
Yeah, we did it. Yeah.
But there's more to be talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not all Pokemons will transfer over to Sword and Shield. I got a lot more data on this, and it is basically, they're saying that the animation and the animation of the new Pokemon is more time consuming than expected, and that we should prepare. It is a design shift that it is likely that you will never get all Pokemon in a Pokemon game ever again.
Okay.
That you will get the regional dexes of that game only.
So I read what was positioning itself to be a leak.
Yeah.
Did you read the
I did
same
not
thing?
see that, no.
Okay, so apparently, and like I don't know how legitimate this is.
Whatever. It's grounds for discussion on the real stuff anyway.
I suppose, right? But like, without going too far into it, because I'm like, until we get this confirmed from another source, we don't know if it's bullshit or not.
Yeah.
But the leak was apparently from someone involved with the way this game was being made, and
Yeah.
they basically described that models and things in game were being inefficiently handled.
The thing with the clouds.
Duplicated from region to region.
Yeah.
Like literally textures are being used more than once. Literally, like entire Pokemon data was being used more than once. And in some cases, the clouds in the background were duplicate models because when they go into whatever special mode,
the big mode.
the clouds in the background represent how many turns they have left.
Yeah.
And so
so instead of making separate cloud models, they would make a version of the Pokemon that has 2 clouds and a version of the Pokemon that has 3 clouds. And
Now, again, super sounds like it could be made up bullshit.
it does sound that way. However, it is known that there are characters and shit in Sun and Moon that have different models for different facial expressions.
Okay.
So rather than having the facial expression change, they swap the model.
Now, it's kind of crazy to be in a world where we're criticizing Nintendo for programming practices when like problems are arising as a result.
Yeah.
You know? Because it's like you'd think they'd have it down more tight than absolutely anyone else in this entire industry.
I have a bunch of friends who are Pokemon Champ, whatever. Like these, I have 2, maybe 3 friends that have living dexes, like the living national dex, sitting in Pokemon Home right now, which people are now calling Pokemon Jail.
Okay.
Because they can't be taken out into the new whatever. But so I have resources of people to ask about this shit, and I've been talking to them a lot, right? You remember, Willie, did you buy every Pokemon game?
No.
I don't either, right? But every couple of games I dive back in. And every time I'm just kind of astonished at how little has changed and how little it moves forward. The tipping point for this isn't even that not all Pokemon can be transferred forward. There's a lot of people out there with teams that are very specific. They've had for 20 years, stuff like that. Of course, for them, that's the biggest thing. But it's when Game Freak comes out and says, listen, it's really hard to animate all of these. There's too many, right? There's so much of that is so obviously bullshit that's what's causing the pot to boil over. Because in X and Y, they overproduced the 3D models in Pokemon, specifically so that they would be future-proofed. Remember X and Y having frame rate drops all the time?
Yeah.
That's because the models were too high quality for the 3DS.
But they also made every previous Pokemon.
All of them, right? And they dropped double battles and triple battles and shit like that because the engine couldn't handle it on the 3DS. But hey, we have this new model. It scales up. It's future-proofed, right? Mm-hmm. And they did that for all of it. And that's a shit ton of work, right? Mm-hmm. And now it's being said, well, no, that wasn't enough work. And the main thing that comes down to it is animation. They're saying we're putting a lot more animation into these things because with Pokemon out in the world, they have to animate walk cycles and flight cycles and stuff like that, right? But the showing they showed at E3 looked really bad because Pokemon are essentially... Clemps did I think he did a video on this, or he talked about it on Twitter, that ever since they moved to the 3D models, Pokemon don't have stances and moves anymore. They're basically just locked into perennial A poses for their Pokemon. They stand there, and then they do an attack, and the model moves forward, and a sprite appears on the other character, and that's the attack. And they're basically all super rigid A-pose 3D models.
I remember the exact moment that the dream died for me when... Oh, yeah, double battles were totally in.
They took out triple.
But I remember when the dream died when I had my Blastoise with Seismic Toss from Blue, and I brought it forward into Pokemon Stadium, and I wanted to see a giant fucking grappling move, and it still wasn't that. And it still just ended up being a weird, like, whoop.
The funny thing that you mentioned about Pokemon Stadium is that Pokemon Stadium and Pokemon Stadium 2 are being used to kind of shit on Game Freak, because those were GameCube games made by other developers that had shit tons of unique animations for hundreds of moves across hundreds of Pokemon. Graveler has like a unique like mud attack that only he has. Everybody has a unique death animation. Everybody has a unique tackle animation. Stuff like that. And it's like, this was made by a fucking outsourced studio like 15 fucking years ago.
Coliseum.
Yeah, Coliseum. Am I saying Stadium?
Yeah.
Is that not the...
Coliseum is Stadium was early as N64. It's literally my fucking next to the Yoshi up there. It's like Game Freak has been making the same game over and over and over, and they keep crying poverty when it's like Pokemon is maybe the biggest IP in media. It's crazy. It's wildly huge.
And for people that have, let's say, fuck it, you really like the ice cream cone Pokemon. I don't even remember its name. And that's your main. And it's like, you're not being told it can't get in because we want to limit it or whatever. You're being told, like, we just don't have the time or the whatever to do the animations. It's like, that's bullshit.
You said no to Skylanders. Pokemon said no.
Oh, that's true.
To Skylanders.
They totally did.
Spyro said yes.
Yeah. And look at what happened there. Like it's bullshit. Like it is a. Remember back in the 360 era when all those Japanese companies were like fucking floundering because the setups they had didn't lend themselves to HD development? You remember that whole fucking fiasco that tanked a bunch of Japanese companies for like 10 years?
Yeah.
Because it's Pokemon, they got to dodge that for like a decade.
Are we at the point where, and it might be a little ridiculous to say, but it's like you know how like Game Freak is basically like the Pokemon company, like they're basically just that's what's up. It's almost like should someone else be involved and or running the show?
Well, there's a really weird situation with that, which like so there's a non-DMCA compliant version of Pokemon out there that you can use to battle that always gets updated with the new moves and all that. You know, it's basically just a battle simulator. I forget the name of it. Somebody in chat, please let me know. Mm-hmm. That will include all the Pokemon, which means it for people that like the Pokemon versus battle shit, it will be objectively better.
Showdown?
Showdown. People are saying Showdown, yeah. It will be objectively better in every way than the official titles.
Right? I mean, it was the point. The same point was brought up last week, but yeah, you built a franchise on collecting things, so you should expect people to really care about their collections.
People have said, and this is fair, "Gotta catch them all" has not been the catchphrase
in a while.
Too bad. Yeah. It was on the box for a bunch of them. The anime still uses it, which is like one of the biggest things, popularity wise.
Also, is this Gen 11?
No, 7.
7?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the other thing.
Gotta catch some of them.
There's there's also the idea that's like there are problems that exist in this deep in the game, and Generation 8. Okay.
8.
So
okay,
we're literally like finding there's issues that are existing in something where the only complaint should be my first one, which is why can't I look up? Right? Yeah. That should be my only complaint at this point. Everything else should be quality of life into the smoothest top-down RPG experience in the world. It should be magic at this point.
There are problems in Pokemon Sword and Shield that date all the way back to fucking Red and Green.
It's crazy. It's crazy that anything else besides why can't I look up is a problem at this point.
Now,
because it's such a simple thing that's come such a long way, and like something as simple as like bringing your shit forward.
So
anyway,
I want to take So there's a real feeling from a lot of people like it's not broke, don't change it, and that's fair. And hey, I like it the way it is. There's no reason to change it just for people that aren't into it already, right? The typical like longtime fan against people who are frustrated by it. Totally, right? I was into Monster Hunter before World. And everyone who loved Monster Hunter fucking complained endlessly about all the fucking about all the stupid bullshit in Monster Hunter that you just had to deal with. But it was part of the thing. And game after game after game, they refused to change this thing. Maybe they toned down this part a little. Maybe they toned down that a lot, right? But there's always so much fucking bullshit, right? And I look at my friends who are longtime Pokemon fans, and every time a game comes out, I'm seeing them complain about the same fucking things over and over. The number one of which is, why can't I skip this fucking 2.5 hour tutorial? I know how to catch a fucking Pokemon.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And then Monster Hunter World came out. And I had people that I remember arguing with going, they ruined it, they casualified it, whatever. It's the most in-depth Monster Hunter game ever. It is the best Monster Hunter game ever. It is now the most popular game Capcom has ever made. Shut up. There is no reason to just leave problems for decades just because it's the way they're done. Fix them.
So we know now, especially because we've talked many times about stubbornness in certain franchises.
Yeah.
And
I think I could sum it up in like one sentence. I don't want it to be better. I want it to be the way it is. And it's like, it's frustrating. It's like when I play something that I really care about, I don't enamor myself with it so much that I don't want it to change. I want it to be a better version of what it is.
Yep.
But people don't want it to change at all. At all. It's
And so like something else like people talk about, like, you know, like where Digimon goes and things like that, and it's like these other franchises that are never going to make headway in this
space that Pokemon owns,
because it's Pokemon. It is the Pokemon space.
Yeah.
You know, and like you care about some of those fucking little critters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you like at
That's Pikachu.
yeah, and it's the reason why you might dive back in at some point again.
Yeah.
But the idea of there being botch generations is
Christ,
really fucking
let's bring it
shitty.
back to Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter Tri and fucking 3 Ultimate have swimming in it. Hey, Woolie, did you swim once in World? No, you know why? Because that mechanic got fucking junk because it's garbage. And it wasn't in 4 either. But they wanted to try something crazy and new for 3, so they added swimming. And it was a fucking disaster, and it made parts of that game way worse. But in 4 is when they added the mounting shit. Guess what's awesome? Mounting the monster. The new slinger shot shit they're adding, part of it has to do with mounting the monster, part of it has to do with causing flinches. Hey, that looks really good. But what if we just kept it like it was in 2G? You wouldn't have got it. You wouldn't have had the horrible swimming, but you also wouldn't have got it, I don't know, mounting, climbing.
I saw
shit,
saw an article or two that was basically named like Iceborne improvements mean we can't go back.
Yeah. Have you been following it?
I haven't.
It's like a sequel. It's you know they gave Nero's Devil Bringer to everybody, right?
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And when you hit somebody with that clutch claw attack, that part of the monster is weakened and glows, so everybody beat on it.
And it's a universal hunter item,
Yep.
Piece of equipment now.
In addition, everybody gets new moves that in the middle of your combo, you can fire off your slinger to cause a flinch to stop them from interrupting you.
Skill moves.
Yep.
Cool. Okay.
It's awesome.
Iterating a franchise over so long and somehow still coming up short on things as simple as that.
It's things as simple as this.
It just
Oh, the other thing that is like, maybe it's not fair, I don't know, but the E3 build of Pokemon had monsters A-posing as walking animations constantly. And in some cases, they looked like it was supposed to be that. There's Wingull. You know Wingull is like a seagull? It doesn't flap its fucking wings when it flies, because it glides. But it just means that the monster is literally A-posing as its form of movement. It's like, that's the good animation we need that we can't get fucking Bulbasaur in the game.
and
Like,
what actually and just last thing is, this game, we've known about it for a little bit now. It's been in development for a while, and it's as we're getting news as it gets close to release that this bad news comes out.
yeah.
And not like early on in when like people can make enough of a complaint to say change that
It's
shit.
way too late.
Right? We're looking at the ramp up to release, which is what this whole like
Also,
recent announcement stuff has been. Well, it's like this is stuff that like your fan base is gonna be loudly upset about, that probably you could have maybe talked about earlier, and almost even gave yourself time. You know. But of course, you have to push the game back to do that.
There is a quote that says, "Hey, we're working as hard as we can, but there's only so much we can get done by the release date." And it's like, oh, right. Because there are movies that come out. There's the new season of the anime that comes out. There's an entire merch line that has to come out. And it's like, the Pokemon turned themselves into what is essentially a movie franchise. It has to come out every 2 or 3 years, and it has to come out on this fucking date. And no matter what corners you gotta cut, it's gonna hit that fucking date.
This is a solved problem. You delay the game until it's ready.
No.
We've solved this problem
Woolie,
in the industry
delaying
a long time ago.
Pokemon is not an option. It's just not. It's just not. Now, there is a real option here, which is throw more money at it.
Hey, do you want to drop a Shiggy quote that's relevant?
What's that?
I think you can read my mind.
Oh, what's that? A bad game a rush game will be bad forever, and a good game will eventually be good, or a delayed game can eventually be good.
Yes.
By Shigeru Miyamoto.
The guy.
Yeah, the guy who's screaming at them to get Pokemon done by a certain date because money. I bet Miyamoto feels that way about his projects.
I mean, I guess it's like if someone has to come and factor investors screaming into the equation,
Yeah.
the situation gets complicated. Bowser is now on the line, but as it is, this is one of those situations where it's like, look, it's very clear what people do want, and you should probably just get it in there.
So
and wait.
I look at this, and I think the reason why they said you're probably never going to get another game with all of them in it is they look at the deadline stuff that they're in right now, and they're like, we'll never be able to add 100 Pokemon, animate them all, and then bring all the other ones old into it, ever. The timing on the work just doesn't line up. And part of that is because their development processes are laughably the fuck out of date, and they're still living in the fucking DS generation, essentially. And part of it is they will never get longer to make these games.
Well, what I actually am wondering is how much say does like Nintendo's yelling have over Game Freak?
The structure of Game Freak is so fucking weird because Pokemon is split 3 ways between Nintendo, Game Freak, and something else.
The Pokemon Company.
The Pokemon Company, right? It's goofy.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Everything about it is weird.
Well, anyway, continues to be strange. And again, the idea of botched generations coming out where people go, meh, skip that, wait for the next.
Yeah, except this time, they're saying the next one won't have them all either.
Yeah.
Or the next one.
Well,
or the next one.
Yeah.
And it's like, is this... If this is really important to you, is this just time to stop?
I mean, depends on how the hardcore fan base reacts to it,
I don't know.
I suppose. If they're like, I'm going to stick with what I got.
There's also
who
people
knows?
that are
Who
into
knows?
the competitive aspect that are like terrified because Pokemon is not balanced. And picking picking 15 of each type to throw into the game can likely end up with like, all right, here's the meta. It's 6 Dragonites. Right? Or it's whatever.
Yeah. Well, anyway, hooray for Nintendo Online.
Hooray for Nintendo. Always on top of things. Cutting that bleeding edge.
Yeah.